Welcome to Chiropractical. I'm Jon Kec, and on this episode, we're flipping the script. No interviews, no guests. You just get me and a stack of your questions, and some total honesty. From my secret hype rituals to the future of AI in your clinic, we've got a lot to answer today. Welcome back to Chiropractical. I'm your host, Jon Kec. This episode is a special AJA one. We'll call it Ask Jon Anything. Over the course of the past few months, we've been getting questions and comments from our fantastic listeners, and we thought we'd spend this episode answering them. Some about the chiropractic profession as a whole, some are specific, and some are going to be a little personal for me, but in a good way. So let's get right to it. First up, from Dr. Marcus in Washington, he asks, Jon, do you have a pre-show ritual? Is there a hype song you listen to get yourself in the right mindset? Not really. Honestly, my biggest thing is I am just trying to do the best I can. So I want to make sure I come into every conversation with some perspective, understanding who our guests are, what we're really going to be talking about, to make sure that I have good questions for them, to make sure you guys get the best information out of them. Other than that, it's really just trying to be as focused and present with them as I can, because again, they bring amazing information. I'm just here to hopefully get some good information out of them and over to y'all through the conversation. From Dr. Rachel in Boston. She asks, statistically, only a small percentage of the population sees a chiropractor regularly. What do you think is the biggest barrier keeping the rest of the public from walking into a chiropractic clinic for the first time? It's a question I feel like we bring up a lot. It's a question I had in school. It's a question that we asked a lot while I was in school, as well as when I was in practice. And I think it's just misunderstanding or a lack of understanding. A lot of people don't really know what to expect when they walk into a chiropractic office. Part of that, I think, is on us as a profession. We're all so different, which is great, but the experiences are so different from one office to the next that people don't really know what they're getting when they walk into an office. And again, that's a good thing. There's that variability, so there is a place and a spot for everybody. What we need to do is just get out there and be as educational to the public as we can. We do great work. We spend time with our patients. We really get to know them and their problems. And that's not something you can say for a lot of other professions, a lot of other medical disciplines, and honestly, most of the offices they're used to going into. They're running behind, they're trying to move them as quickly as possible, and they're charging a ton of money for 5 minutes of their time. It's not what we do, but people don't necessarily know that, and they don't necessarily know what that experience is going to be like. Best thing we can do, talk to our patients, have them talk to their friends, their family, because the more that we can share what the profession is and what the experience in a chiropractic office is, the better, and the better chance we have to get them into the office. Next up, Trevor in Denver sent us a note. Was listening to the show featuring keeping patients on their treatment plan. What or where do you see the communication breakdown that causes a patient to walk away mid-treatment plan? Honestly, I think it starts at the beginning. I think one of the biggest things that we take for granted as providers is we assume everybody knows what we know, and we don't necessarily set the stage well enough for them to really understand what to expect. Once they commit to treatment, they have a set of expectations. We have a set of expectations. And if we don't marry those two things from the beginning, we set ourselves and we set them up for failure. So have that open line of dialogue with them. Say, hey, this is the issue. This is what I'm seeing. This is how I want to approach it. And this is kind of how I see things going. We're going to reevaluate at 4 visits, at 6 visits, at 8 visits, whatever it is. And making sure that they understand that they may not be fully better at that first re-exam. They may not be fully better after the first treatment. And if that's something that they're expecting and we don't bridge that gap, we set them up to be in a position where they feel like it didn't work. They weren't ready to come for 8 visits or 12 visits or whatever we think they need. So next thing we know, they're not feeling like they're where they want to be. They fall off their care plan. You never end up seeing them again. And then everybody's in a bad spot. Dr. Dave in Chicago wanted to know from me, what's the one movie or TV show you find yourself binging over and over again? I'm a Seinfeld guy. I will watch Seinfeld on repeat in the background, filling the I'm a Seinfeld guy. I'll watch the show on repeat. I'll have it on in the background, just filling the silence as I'm doing the dishes. I've seen probably the entire show 20 times, and I will probably watch it 20 more, maybe this year, who knows? But always my go-to. Anytime I'm just looking for something to be completely mindless and relax, it is the first thing I put on. From Jacob in Columbus, Ohio. As more practices shift to entirely digital EHR systems and online booking, what's a step a clinic can take to protect themselves from breaches and data hacks? I am by no means an IT expert. And in my world, that means finding somebody who is, right? If I'm in a position where I have hundreds, thousands of patient records in my EHR, I need to make sure that those are protected to protect them, but also honestly to protect myself. And the best thing you can do, twofold, best two things you can do. Make sure you have somebody that knows exactly what to set up, exactly how to set you up with your firewalls and all your data security, and making sure, if needed, again, this is the naive tech guy, I guess we'll say, maybe there's a network for the office and there's a separate network, a guest network that are completely independent of each other, but whatever that means, setting it up how it needs to be set up and finding a person who can really, truly help you with that. Beyond that, the second piece, things happen. No matter how well we protect ourselves, how well we plan for things, we just never know. Healthcare is an extremely ripe target for cybersecurity and data breach issues. And I think a lot of people always hear about the large hospital systems in the news. They're targets, but what they don't hear about is honestly the small office is an easier target. The hospital has hundreds of thousands of records probably. They have millions of dollars to pay data breach. And they're also a lot better insulated than most small offices are. So what a cyber thief is probably going to do is look at your small office, your 500 records, your 5,000 records, and say, yeah, I won't get as much money, but it's going to be much easier. And you can't afford to be down for a day, a week, a month. The hospital, although they can't afford it, they have a lot more systems in place and they have a lot more flexibility to just figure it out. So for you as a small provider, make sure you have some kind of data breach and cybersecurity insurance. Somebody that's going to help you fix the problem. Buy data recovery, an expert that can do data recovery and pay for that. Some coverage for notification of your patients, because unfortunately, if this happens, you have to notify them. You may have to take steps to help protect their information. You're going to have conversations with the government because, again, patient health information is protected. So as soon as that breach happens, you've now committed a violation with the government. Make sure you have coverage to help you through that process and that situation. So there's coverage for that. You just have to make sure it's part of your business liability insurance. And honestly, it's a lot cheaper than I think a lot of us think it is when you start looking at the cost to actually fix one of these issues. The amount of, money that goes into getting your systems back online, getting the data recovered, then notification and anything, again, you might have to do to help protect that patient's data later. All of that stuff adds up really quick. It's a much cheaper option to have it insured. The deductibles are generally fairly small. There's often creative ways that things like that can be set up to really make it easy for you. So long story short, make sure it's something you have. It can be built into a business liability policy you hopefully already have. But make sure it's also tailored to your practice, right? There are some policies that just kind of throw it into other things. Great idea. Nice to have, but is it right for you in your office? Are you overinsured? Are you underinsured? Talk to somebody who actually knows what that should be, who understands what that cost of recovery is, and let them help you build out the right coverage to make sure you're getting what you pay for and you're paying for the right thing. Next up, Dr. Melissa from California. I went back and was listening to the podcast with Mike Whitmer. I hope he's having a great retirement. I loved him preaching documentation, documentation, documentation. Did you ever have any good documentation habits that you could share? I think this kind of goes back to something I mentioned earlier, and I'm going to add to documentation and say communication, because before you can document it, you need to make sure you communicate it, because what you document is what you talked about, right? So good communication with the patient is the first step. After that, great documentation is the next step, and it's what will save you in the end if something were to ever happen. But making sure that you have clear communication and documentation for what was truly done at that appointment, because you're never going to remember it 6 months down the line. You're going to know what you usually do, but was that an off day? Was that a bad day? Was that patient in a hurry? Were they late? Who knows? And that always means that something might have been a little bit different. So document those changes. Other big thing, and I know this has been hammered into all of us, is timely documentation. Because again, same thing. 5 minutes after the appointment versus 5 hours versus 5 days, your recollection of what happened is different. So making sure that you get things done in a timely manner gives you the most complete and accurate record of what actually happened. Now, that's not to say you can't go back 5 hours or 5 days later and add an addendum to it. Do it the right way, but do it, right? If there's something you forgot or there's something else that happened that you want to make sure you clarify, Of course, as long as you're doing it the right way, no problem, but get it done early. Don't let these things sit. Don't let these things pile up, because none of us love it. It's not our favorite part of practice. Let's be real here. But it's necessary. And the more you do to just get it off your plate early, the better everybody's going to be, and the better you set yourself up just in case you ever need it later. This is a question I love from Alana in Florida. You've mentioned in a few podcasts about how NCMIC is more than malpractice. For a new DC just opening their doors, what's an overlooked insurance coverage outside of malpractice that I should be considering on day one? Kind of already mentioned it. Business insurance of some kind, right? If you're opening your own practice, you are responsible for everything that happens inside that practice or inside that building. So your malpractice is going to cover you and your license. It's going to cover all the scope of practice stuff that you are allowed to do with that license. But what about all the other stuff? You have a space. That means you have people coming into that space. You're responsible for the safety of that space. It's a really silly example. I use it all the time, but I think it's the easiest one to make sense. You have a patient that sits down in a chair in your waiting room, in your treatment room, whatever it may be. Chair leg breaks. They fall, they try to catch themselves, they break their wrist. They're not going to sue you for malpractice because they didn't get hurt because of your care. They didn't get hurt because of something you did or didn't do, should or shouldn't have done. From a treatment perspective, they got hurt because the chair you told them to sit in wasn't safe. You're still responsible for the safety of that chair. So what's going to cover you in that case? And that's your business and general liability insurance. Building on that, a good business owner's policy can take care of a whole host of other things too that we probably don't even think about. Cyber insurance that I talked about before being one of them. Also, your personal liability, right? Your workers' compensation or your injury liability, I should say, right? You're now you're the business. The business is you. If you get hurt, golfing, water skiing, snowboarding, whatever your thing is, and can't work for 3 days, who's going to make sure the money's still coming in, right? You still have bills that have to be paid. You still have expenses you have to account for, especially as a brand new DC. I'm sure you're trying to run lean, but everything is something. So talking to somebody who can help you really build that stuff out and make sure that you are truly and fully protecting yourself is where I always recommend starting. We're so focused on getting into practice. We're so focused on treating patients, which is exactly what we've been driving for the last 3+ years. But I think we take some of that stuff for granted. And if we do, we set ourselves up for failure later. So big picture approach, protect your license, protect your business, protect yourself, and really find somebody who can help you through that process, because where you're at today on day one may not be the same place you're going to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now. So getting a good kind of touch point or person that is to have those touch points with is huge. Sarah in Texas asks, when you were practicing, what was your first encounter with a new patient like? What questions did you ask? And looking back, would you have changed anything? Yes. Second answer first. Yes, I would have changed some things. I think coming out of school, and I think a lot of us have this same experience, we know a lot, but I don't know if we trust what we know. And I think my first year in practice was a lot of figuring out who I was and how to really manage myself, my time, my communication, my treatment, of course. So those early first encounters and honestly follow-up visits too, were probably a little clunky. I appreciate all the patients who gave me some grace as I figured it out, because it's daunting. All right. But I'm going to go a little further than just starting out. Once I kind of got my feet underneath me, I think I got into a really good flow. One of the things that really helped me was, charts, body diagrams, because I think that visual was something that really brought it to life for patients, being able to see when we were talking about areas of the body and how one area may interplay with the other and why we're treating this and then that, and all that stuff really puts them in a position where they had that ability to truly understand it. And if they didn't, they could ask questions, they could come up, point to things, we could talk it through in a different way. So really giving them that assistance, because they see their body, they see shoulder pain, but they don't understand how their neck or their mid-back may be playing into that. So taking them through that process and that story was always really helpful. It took more time. I was never in a place where I was spending 5, 10, 15 minutes with a patient. It was typically 20 to 30, at least, just to kind of get them that understanding. But I think for me, that was extremely valuable. So, again, plenty of things I would have changed from those early encounters as I really kind of rounded into it. Having that assistance from the visual aids, from the body charts, the muscle charts really was extremely helpful for me. And then I'm going to hammer it again. Communication. Make sure that you're both on the same page, both at that initial visit, but also on follow-up visits, even if they're not true re-exams, is huge. Another question from a recent grad, Liam in Missouri. First, congratulations, Dr. Liam. If I could add a mandatory class to the curriculum at any chiropractic college that doesn't necessarily have to be clinical, what topic would it cover? Business, running a business, whether that's as an associate or as a business owner, how to function as a professional beyond just the clinical stuff. Some schools have it. I shouldn't say that. I think all schools have it. Some probably do it better than others. But really understanding what it takes to be a practicing professional that is non-clinical. We do a lot of stuff that is really focused on delivering the best care to our patients, how to evaluate them, how to treat them, how to take them through continuity of care. But I think we often are underserved in how to balance our day-to-day, maybe. We don't talk about business insurance very much. We don't talk about the things we mentioned before, cyber insurance, disability insurance, workers' compensation, to make sure that we're protecting ourselves. But we also don't really talk about how to structure a business. We don't necessarily talk about how to get funding for your business. And I think that's all huge. Even as an associate, you still got to really understand, how do you get out and market yourself? Because some of us are exceptionally lucky. We end up in practices that are just rocking and rolling. We're busy from day one. But I think a lot of us, even in those associate roles, aren't. And some practices expect us to build our own book, and that's okay. It's just a matter of making sure you have that groundwork and that understanding to get out there and do it. And the practices that expect you to do it, some of them may really be great at teaching you how to do that and helping you through that process. But again, some aren't. They just, they're giving you a place to practice. Everything else is on you. And you're an associate. So we need that help. So business course. If any of the, presidents of the colleges or anybody in charge of curriculum is listening, I felt underserved coming out. I hear that experience from a lot of doctors coming out. It's something I would absolutely recommend we take a look at and figure out, how do we make that stronger? Tyler in Dallas. Jon, on the show, you've spoken with 40-year veterans as well as brand new graduates. What advice have you heard or do you have that new grads should hear? You're ready, I think is the best place to start. We get so much information in school. We go through boards. We take on all this stuff just to get to the place where we get a diploma and we get our license. And then it feels like the whole process maybe starts over. And it does, but you're ready for it. You know more than you think. Trust yourself. Talk it out with friends, colleagues. But you guys are more ready than you think. It's the first step in a really long journey, and it may not be the journey you expect from day one, but it's going to be an awesome one. But don't second guess yourself. Just make sure you're doing the things you need to do, both personally and professionally, to keep yourself moving forward, but you're ready. Question from a different Rachel, this time from Nashville. The episode with Dr. Fuchinari about burnout really hit home for me. Do you have any other ideas to help us stay healthy mentally? I think he did an amazing job of really giving us some perspective and some strategies to understand that, burnout's a fluid thing. I think it's both a fluid thing and I think it's a varied thing. One day we may be great. The next day we may feel like we've hit a wall, right? And it may be for a completely different reason than the last time we feel like we hit that wall. I think the biggest thing we can do is take care of ourselves, whatever that means for you, whatever kind of decompression, unplug, get your mind off work type of stuff that you need, do it. Don't underestimate the impact that can have even in the short term. And maybe that's 15 minutes in the middle of your day to get outside and get some sunshine on your face. It helps. Figure out what's best for you. For me, it was always exercise. It was just a nice mental reset for me. I played with it beginning of my day, middle of my day, end of my day, and it wasn't ever consistent because each day is different. But that was what always really helped me reset. Figure out what that thing is for you, and on a day-to-day basis, make sure you incorporate that. Bigger picture, find some time to get away. For me, at least, was always big. So a long weekend here, true vacation there, those types of things that allowed me to step away for a minute, because I have a tendency to get, I think, too deep into it, too consumed into it. I check emails late. I check them early. I respond when I probably don't need to because it could wait till tomorrow. But that's a habit I know I have. So the things I can do to get away and just turn all that stuff off, extremely helpful. Emily in Illinois, you talk with doctors at every stage of their career. When you look at the happiest DCs, is there a common thread that keeps their passion going? I feel like in all the conversations I've had, passion comes through in different ways. It may be passion for documentation, Mike Whitmer. And for clarity, Mike wasn't a doctor, but Mike was so rooted in this profession, he may as well have been one. But passion for documentation, passion for helping people, which I think is true for a lot of us, passion for building a business, passion for the geeky side of AI and things that it can do there, and some of my other conversations. And Dr. J, geeky in a good way. No disrespect there. But I think that's been the biggest thing is figuring out what really truly drives you that all these doctors have had in common, and then leaning into that. Is it helping a patient with, a new cutting edge technique? Is it having that time to spend with patients, finding a practice where you can sit down for 20, 30 minutes, an hour, if that's what you want to do, and really invest the time? I feel like if you figure out what that is, it stops becoming work and it starts becoming just the norm. It's your day. It's what you're supposed to be doing. And that just feeds itself. Again, back to earlier, you're going to hit walls. You're going to have burnout at times. But I think a lot of times what that is we've lost our focus, right? Something has pulled our attention in another direction. And once we get a chance to identify that, refocus a bit, I think it helps us through that. And there are other things you may need to do along the way, but it really helps us through that. One of the other big things I think that a lot of the people that we've talked with have shown us is that passion runs deep. They had that moment where maybe they were 15 and it was the first time they got treated, or they were at a seminar and something just clicked. But they had that moment they can identify that says, hey, this is truly what it's about for me. And I think we've all had that. I don't know if all of us have recognized that yet. So if you do find yourself, wavering a little bit, maybe considering a change in practice or whatever it may be, take a second, step back, try to identify that for yourself, because I think that'll give you some guidance and some perspective that it's right there under the surface. You just got to go look for it. Reposed a question to me. If NCMIC handed me a plane ticket to anywhere in the world for a 2-week, all expenses paid vacation, where am I headed? I've got two competing answers here. New Zealand. I've been to Australia, loved it. I was young, so I didn't get to necessarily enjoy it the way I would as an adult. Didn't have the freedom to just kind of go where I wanted to go. But New Zealand for sure. The weather, the appeal of, beaches in the morning, skiing in the afternoon up in the snow, all that amazing. Or Europe and just doing like a big trip around Europe, fly into London or somewhere central. And just kind of train around, do Italy and Greece and Spain and England and Ireland and all the things. But to really kind of get just all of that in one trip would be absolutely amazing. We received questions from a number of you about AI and the future of chiropractic. First, go back and listen to the episode with Dr. Foxworth from last season. Also, the one we did about AIO and SEO with Jacob and Grace a handful of episodes ago. But the big question I get asked a lot, both online and in person, is where do I think the profession is heading, and what's a good indicator that the profession is actually thriving? And the more I just came out of a continuing education seminar 2 weekends ago, I guess it was now. The more I talk to people, the more I sit in this kind of stuff, the more I start to realize that it's not necessarily AI specific. That is, it's not that the profession is becoming AI dominated. It's how do we really leverage AI to help us? And I think that's where we go next. We all are busy, professionally busy, personally busy. What can we do to offload some of that stuff and free up some more time, whether that's time to see more patients, time to go out and build your practice more, time to decompress and unplug because we're feeling a little burned out, whatever it is. And that's going to change situation to situation. But it's what can we do to take some of the load off of our plates? And I think that's really where the profession is heading is how do we leverage time better? And I think AI may have a lot to do with that, as those episodes may kind of show you. But as far as an indicator the profession is thriving, of course, more people in the office is always going to be the first thing. But I do think there is a component of it that is happiness driven, right? As professionals, we face a lot of challenges as chiropractors. We can have conversations all day about reimbursement and utilization and all that stuff, and valid conversations. But I think we do also need to step back and just figure out what do we really need to focus on personally to make sure we're happy with our day-to-day, that we're thriving as professionals. The better we thrive as professionals, the better the profession thrives as a whole. So that's all going to be kind of snowballing too. I think we're happier. Our patients know we're happier. Our patients have better experiences. We start asking the right questions to get them to help us refer other patients, which is an art. But that then increased utilization and good results drives potential reimbursement conversations and all this stuff starts to snowball. So I really think it starts with us. And I think that's, for me, one of the best indicators of the profession's success as a whole is how happy providers are with their choice to become chiropractors. And that's a multi-layered conversation, but I think we each have to figure out what that means for us. That wraps up our first annual Ask Jon Anything episode. I want to say thank you to everyone who's not only listened to Chiropractical, but also took the time to send us questions and comments. I greatly appreciate it. Obviously, the show couldn't have happened without you. I'd love to do it again, so keep them coming. Before we end today's episode, I did want to let you know that Chiropractical will be back at FCA's The National in Orlando in August. We'll be in the NCMIC booth on Friday, so stop by and say hello. I'd also love to get to meet you in person, have some conversations. Who knows? Maybe you end up on an episode as well. If you found this episode helpful, be sure to subscribe and share this podcast with a colleague. It'd be great if you could also leave us a review, as it'll help more chiropractors find us here at Chiropractical. Be sure to watch the video version of this episode on the NCMIC YouTube channel. If you have any questions for me or the show, you can always email me at jkec@ncmic.com. And who knows, you may be one of the questions on our next Ask Jon Anything. Thanks again for listening. I'm Jon Kec, and this has been Chiropractical.